Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Chase and today I will be reviewing the January 18th edition of AEW Dynamite, which featured Bryan Danielson versus Bandido and Darby Allin versus KUSHIDA. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to review Dynamite this week after the news of Jay Briscoe's passing, but these wrestlers on the show, many of who were close friends with Jay, went out there and performed under these awful circumstances and honored him. So I'd like to start this video today and talk a little bit about Jay Briscoe. There's nothing I can say about Jay's career or that of the Briscoes that hasn't already been said better than I ever could. Jay Briscoe was in ROH from the very beginning. As a teenager, he grew up in wrestling in front of wrestling fans. He and his brother Mark Briscoe became, in my opinion, the greatest tag team of the past 2 decades. The Briscoes, Jay in particular, had an authentic way about him in everything that they did. It's that same realness and rawness that first drew me to a Brian Pillman, later a CM Punk, now an Eddie Kingston. Jay was an incredible wrestler, an incredible promo, but what has stuck with me since his passing is how great a man Jay Briscoe was. He was a man who took accountability, who was able to grow and learn. So many wrestlers have shared so many amazing stories about him. The tweets I've seen have been so much about people's personal experiences with Jay, his interactions with them, the bonds that they formed with him. There was something about him that clearly made so many in this business see him as a friend first and a fellow wrestler second. He loved his family, his wife, his 3 children, his parents, his brother, which makes the circumstances of his death even more heartbreaking. I know myself the pain of losing a parent as a child, but I can't imagine what his children are going through. His 2 daughters were in the car with him. One has faced serious surgery since, and Jay's death made so many of us think about how short and precious life really is, the importance of letting those you love know it every day. My thoughts are with Jay's family, his friends, everyone who loved him. I'm going to link in the description some of his matches that are free on YouTube right now if you want to remember and celebrate Jay's work. And Dynamite this week did open with a graphic for Jay, and wrestlers were wearing armbands for Jay as well. There was no 10-bell salute, and there has been reporting on why. It wasn't Tony Khan's decision. I know that Tony and the roster would have wanted the 10 bells for Jay at least. But after Dynamite, Tony did tape a tribute to Jay with matches that will be free on Honor Club and YouTube. And I encourage everyone to watch it and show love and support to the roster, many of who counted Jay as a close friend. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'll probably ramble. I'm not great at this stuff, but I could not come on today and talk about this show without sharing my feelings on Jay Briscoe, and I hope that you all keep him and his family in our thoughts. And yeah, just love to everyone, to Jay's family, his friends, everyone that loved him, and rest in peace, Jay Briscoe, and reach for the sky. So our opening match this week was Orange Cassidy defeating Jay Lethal to retain the All-Atlantic title. This was a very storyline based match. We had Jeff Jarrett, Satnam Singh and Sanjay Dutt all being banned from ringside, but they took seats in the front row. But if they interfered, Sanjay Dutt would lose his job. So shenanigans heavy. We saw Danhausen dressed as a security guard inspecting their ticket, which was very funny. Trent and Chuck walked out with popcorn and beers. And then that distracted Jay Lethal, who Cassidy wiped out with a dive. Later, Chuck Taylor dumped his popcorn over Sanjay Dutt, while referee Bryce Winsberg went down and got distracted. Jeff Jarrett tried to hand his guitar to Jay Lethal, but Danhausen intercepted and took it off him. Back in the ring, Jay Lethal was then rolled up for 2. And then Cassidy got up and fired off an orange punch for the win. Post-match, we saw Satnam Singh jump in to attack the best friends, but Sanjay Dutt stopped them because he's fearing for his job. Jarrett went for a guitar shot, but Dutt was like, no, my job. And Cassidy threw in some little kicks before Dutt and the rest of the gang left. Not really much to say about this match. As I said, more shenanigan heavy. Still not 100% convinced on Jeff Jarrett experiment, but man, does that guy get some heat. I will give him that. Next, we had Top Flight. Darius and Dante Martin defeating the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. So this was very reminiscent of the match that the Young Bucks had with Private Party a few years ago, where Private Party won. Though back at that time, Private Party were unknown, and we have seen a lot of Top Flight and of Darius and Dante. But yeah, commentary here, they put over that the Bucks had been focusing so much on trios that maybe they'd let their kind of tag team sensibilities slip a little bit. It was a really good match. We saw near the end the Bucks hit a Briscoe style Doomsday device. Dante broke that up. He then sent both Bucks outside. He tried his no hand springboard dive, but he leapt right into double super kicks. The Bucks then went for the BTE trigger on Darius, but he ducked it, and the Bucks knocked knees, and Darius rolled up Matt for the flash pin. So yeah, very good match. I love seeing Top Flight showcased here in a match against the Bucks. Arguably the best team in AEW. Well, when FTR is not there. And maybe trios next for this. Maybe this is a good setup to get Darius, Dante, and AR Fox that they've been teaming with a shot at the trios title. And I think that'd be really cool to see Kenny Omega then added into the mix with Top Flight and AR Fox as well. So I would look forward to that when it happens. We then had a Gun Club segment. They came to the ring. They said they Acclaimed embarrassed themselves last week. They were the ones that made the Acclaimed champions, and they actually got a laugh out of me by saying, and we even gave them our dad. Then out comes the Acclaimed. Max tries his rap, but Austin puts a stop to it. But you can't stop Max from rapping. If he has to do a second take, he will. And yeah, he did a rap a lot about sons, like he mentioned Hunter Biden in it. And then he said something that was heavily bleeped, because I was actually watching the TBS feed. He said, they're not the Bulldogs, they're the bullshitters. Then there was a brawl, and then Daddy asked separate them, and he said next week they need to sit down and hash this out. We are getting family therapy. What could that possibly mean? We've seen many therapy sketches in wrestling, surprisingly. I feel like the only time AEW's done it was with Brandy Rhodes when she was kind of evil for a while. That wasn't very memorable. Obviously, there's like Dr. Shelby. But yeah, I think they'll try and do something interesting here, because the Acclaimed always get really interesting spots. I don't know, maybe Dr. Phil cameo. Who's next? Okay, we then had a backstage segment between Renee Paquette and Hangman Page. I thought this was very interesting. It was very different. We all know that Renee and John Moxley are married. You can't get away from that. So she was the one who got the interview with Hangman Page. So as I said last week, Hangman Page really sold his inner feelings very well after the Moxley match. He knocked out Moxley, and instead of like celebrating getting his revenge, he really looked like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Because he had, expressed to us how awful it was for him, what he went through with his concussion, with the main story he told being not being able to remember his child's name, and Moxley, of course, is a father of a young child as well. So that was sold very well, and this was so well followed up on here. So Renee asked him where he goes from here. He said he needs to have some tough conversations and mend some fences. That's quite an open comment, because he could be, of course, talking about the Bucks and Kenny, but they're very wrapped up, in the trios. Or he could maybe even be talking about the Dark Order, some of the other members of the Dark Order. So I don't really know who he could be mending fences with. I mean, maybe CM Punk as well. Only joking. But yes, interesting for Paige. Interesting to see how long Moxley goes is out for. And then when the interview was over, they continued filming, and this is where we got the really, really good bit, because we saw Paige ask Renee how Moxley is feeling, and she said, John's been hurt for the last 10 years. And then he was going to ask her a follow-up question, but he held off. That made me think he was going to ask something about their daughter. But yeah, I thought this was really good. Hangman Page's character from the very beginning in AEW has been one of the most interesting characters in wrestling. How he was portrayed as this, we call him the handsome cowboy, but he's the sensitive cowboy. He's the anxious millennial. We've seen his struggles with alcohol, with self-confidence, with his friendships, all of that. And I think when he was champion, when he finally achieved that goal, a bit of that got lost. So I think this is a really good storyline here to bring us back to the Hangman that we originally fell in love with. This guy who shows a tremendous amount of sensitivity, tremendous heart on his sleeve. Think of that great promo he did before his match with Kenny, where he won the title. That was just really the making of him, promo wise. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where this one goes. Next up, Ricky Starks defeated Jake Hager, and we had Chris Jericho on commentary here. First off, Ricky Starks, since he has been feuding with Chris Jericho, he has been on TV every week, and that is awesome. Jericho is on TV every week. And there's other guys like Moxley and Danielson who are as well, but someone on the MJF, but someone a little lower down on the card like Ricky Starks, you would see a lot of inconsistency with their TV presence, and I think that hindered them when they had momentum behind him. So the awesome thing about Starks getting this great position of being put in a feud with Chris Jericho, and it is great to be in a feud with Chris Jericho if you're a young guy on the rise, is that he is getting this TV time. So every week he's building up that fan support, and it's just so cool to see. So in this match, it was a Jake Hager match. Jake Hager don't wrestle much, but we saw that Menard and Parker, they're out there. They set up a table. Hager was going to try a power bomb with Starks, but Starks managed to fight everyone off. He's a great baby face. He's here facing a bigger opponent in Jake Hager, but he's also facing having to have the JAS around him, and it's in situations like that that Ricky really shines. We had Starks at one point hitting a tornado DDT for 2. We had Menard and Parker trying to do a distraction, but they failed, and Starks got a spear on Hager and won. And then we had Daniel Garcia and Sammy Guevara hitting the ring afterwards, as well as Chris Jericho coming down from commentary. But Starks, he just legged it out there through the fans. So really, so good match, but more just good for Ricky and the development. And then after the break, we saw Tony with Jericho, Garcia, Guevara. He was mad, and he's requested a tag match. Ricky Starks and the Orphan Andretti, which is what he is calling him now, against Guevara and Jericho, the Sex Gods. But then Daniel Garcia was like, hey man, I want to team up with you instead. And of course, a couple of weeks ago, Jericho made Guevara Garcia's accountability buddy. So Sammy was like, yeah, this is like the spot you were meant for. So Garcia has a match with Action Andretti on Rampage. If he wins, he gets to be Jericho's partner. Sammy gave him some leather pants, and Jericho was like, oh, are these real leather? So I think we're going to see Daniel Garcia in leather pants. And then Jericho said it doesn't matter if it's Les Sex Gods or Garcia Co. And then a lot of people on Twitter were like, dude, Jerry Garcia was right there, you know, just like Sammy Hager back in the Inner Circle days. But Jericho said that was too obvious. So Garcia Co. is what we're going for here. But yeah, Jerry Garcia is too obvious because so many people said it, but it'd be also pretty funny as well. But this is interesting. You know, I said a lot towards the end last year about the booking of Daniel Garcia, and if you really like want to hear my full thoughts, and then the Ring of Honor Final Battle preview show that I did with Tyler Sage, I rambled quite a bit about this. I do think that something happened at some point with Garcia. Garcia was in this great storyline where the fans were really behind him to turn on Jericho and be a wrestler, not a sports entertainer. And then it seemed like he had turned on Jericho. And then when they were in Toronto, where Jericho's very popular, being Canadian, Garcia changed his mind and stuck with Jericho. And that was kind of all we got. And it was quite a strange ending to it because it had been so built up. And then the idea of Garcia making that decision in the one place where it would be received positively, I thought was very odd as well. And I do wonder really what happened with Garcia. And then we have Sammy coming in to the JAS. So I don't know if now it's going to be that Sammy Guevara and his kind of interference and things is going to lead to the breaking point with Daniel Garcia. And put him back not wanting to be in the group or cause tension between him and Jericho. So this is interesting, and I'm going to see how it plays out. Yeah, I'm going to see how it plays out because I was highly invested in the Daniel Garcia "You're a Wrestler" story before. So I don't know if this now is going to end up being better than what they looked like they were originally going to do. Speaking of Bryan Danielson, he defeated Bandido. This was just awesome. Of course it is. It's Bryan Danielson and Bandido. There were so many cool spots. They played up their history with a Blue Panther spot at one point. The crowd were so pro Bandido, which is just interesting. I think sometimes with the crowd, when they cheer Danielson's opponent instead of him, I think it's one of those like everyone knows Danielson is so amazing that they just then suddenly go and like the other guy, they're like, you go guy, you have a great performance against Bryan Danielson. I think that's what happens sometimes. But Danielson can adapt very well when the crowd feels like this. This match ended with like a really awesome striking battle. Danielson fought out of the brain buster and he tried the label lock, but Bandido powered out. And then a backslide led to the knee by Danielson to get the win. So of course, these are like the levers of Danielson. He's working his way up to his match with MJF. MJF appeared on the big screen. He was not coming to, I think it was Fresno, California. And he said that the fans were fickle and he's been dealing with the masked Max. But the closer we get to Revolution, the mask is going to slip. And I'll just put this in now because later on we find out that Brian Cage is the next opponent for Bryan Danielson. No offense to Brian Cage, but Danielson has had a run of great matches and great opponents. So Brian Cage feels a little bit flat, but I guess it's because he is such a big, powerful, imposing guy. And of course, MJF's going to want to pick someone like that. This was odd because Bryan Danielson was out there with Prince Nana. And when people wanted to pick on a reason not to like the Ring of Honor integration into AEW, it would always the people that they'd pick on the most were the Gates of Agony and Prince Nana, and just basically say, who are these guys? It's never been explained to us. And I kind of feel like it was never explained to MJF, because he handed Prince Nana some money and said it was more money than he'd ever seen before. But isn't Prince Nana a rich prince? Is that not his gimmick? So that was questionable. They, of course, were all about the money. They said they'd do the job for MJF. Then MJF slapped Brian Cage and was like, you use that hate to motivate you. So there we go. Brian Cage versus Bryan Danielson next week. Okay, we're back talking about the Saraya situation. We had a backstage bit where Saraya just went off on Hikaru Shida, who put the kendo stick in the ring last week, which led to Saraya and Toni Storm losing. She ordered Hikaru Shida to stay backstage during Toni Storm's match with Willow. So, okay, Saraya is a heel now. We all know she's been a heel since the day she entered the company, but they finally just been like full on, like, let's go for it. So we had this match between Toni Storm and Willow Nightingale. Toni Storm won, and thanks to the distraction by Saraya. And then post-match, Saraya just starts beating up Willow Nightingale, who everyone loves. Ruby Soho ran out. Hikaru Shida looked confused. So it seems what they're doing is AEW Originals versus non-angle, it seems like. And Toni Storm and Saraya have been saying, you know, these girls don't know what it's like to be in the big time. And Saraya's always, from the day she came in, just been completely condescending to AEW and the women in the AEW locker room. So I guess that's what we're going with. But then you have Ruby Soho making the save, and she's an ex-WWE person too. I think I just feel sorry for Toni Storm in this situation, because I thought Toni Storm worked so hard when she was given the interim champion. She was just having really great matches, and she didn't really get the recognition. And then Saraya came in, and then you get like the big women's match being built to at Full Gear being Saraya and Britt Baker, even though like Toni Storm and Jamie Hayter was like the in-ring match that was better, and personally like what I wanted to see more. And now Toni, she's not champion anymore, and she's now gonna be Saraya's sidekick. And it's also kind of funny doing this, like we were WWE angle when Toni Storm like walked out of WWE. She's like one of the few people that's had the balls to just leave. The other person really in recent memory being Mercedes Moné. So I don't know, if it was me, like if we want to do this angle, I would have, if you can get Mercedes in, team her with Toni Storm, and they could just be these like boss bitches that won't take they won't take like bad booking or bad working conditions or whatever. But yeah, I'll see how this plays out. I just really I don't want Toni Storm to be left behind. I don't want any focus to be pulled from Jamie Hayter, who is just amazing and a great champion, and a champion who's playing a heel, but the champion that, you know, fans wanted. We saw the reaction to Jamie Hayter last week compared to the reaction of Saraya, and of course Toni Storm, because she was with her. So we'll see. Finally, in our main event, Darby Allin defeated Kushida. Remember Kushida from New Japan and then from WWE. This is a very good match. We had Sting out there with Darby Allin. We had some LA Dojo guys with Kushida. Kushida was specifically targeting Darby's arm to get ready for his submission, while Darby was still doing his usual craziness. So at the end, we had the hoverboard lock almost applied, but Darby Allin locked in his hands. Then Kevin Knight, who was out with Kushida, he tossed Sting a towel and told him to throw it in for Allin, but Sting just stood at the crowd. Darby Allin powered up. Kushida went to put in the submission more, but Allin countered it into the Last Supper for the win. And then the two shook hands after the match. And yeah, that was the end of that. But good match. was pretty cool to see Kushida on TV, and I like Darby Allin being a fighting champion, a fighting TNT champion. That's what we need to get back to bring back the TNT championship more. That's all for me this week. Bit of a different video, but obviously the circumstances. But thank you so much for watching and supporting this channel. Remember to go give me a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Stephanie M. Chase. If you want to support my work and this channel, you can do so by signing up to my Patreon, and there's an OnlyFans as well. And please go check out a video that I have made going through all the WWF, WWE action figures that I had as a kid and VHS tapes. That is going to be up probably minutes after this video goes live. Also check out my interview with Ricochet as well. And this video, it's stripped down this week. I'm not gonna, I don't know, I just feel weird doing the fan gimmick this week. But I was the biggest fan of everyone on this show for working so hard to entertain us under the circumstances. Just everyone was amazing, and once again, just my thoughts are with Jay Briscoe's family, his friends, and if you need something to do this weekend, go watch some incredible Jay Briscoe matches. I will link them in the comments. But until next week, bye.